my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. This episode is in partnership with Motif Medical. Motif designs insurance-eligible products for busy moms. With a focus on innovation and empowerment, Motif's line of breast pumps and maternity compression garments are sophisticated yet discreet and made to support mothers as they navigate new motherhood. Discover why moms are reporting more milk in less time with the Luna breast pump and see how you can get it covered through insurance at motifmedical.com/birthhour. You'll also see their other products there like the Aura Glow, which is their new wearable pump that I discussed at the end of this episode with lactation consultant Jackie. We talk about what makes this wearable unique and how it compares to the Luna, and it's really just a great conversation, so be sure to listen to that at the end of this episode. Before we get to today's birth story, I want to talk a little bit about our online childbirth course. It's called Know Your Options, and this is the course you've been looking for if you just have that gut feeling that you know you should be taking a childbirth course, but maybe the one that's being offered to you by your care provider is not exactly what you're looking for. It might be more catered towards the type of birth they want you to have versus making you informed of all your different options and how to address different things that happen in birth, because as this podcast has shown us, birth is very unpredictable. So we would love to have you check out our 12-module course. You can go to thebirthhour.com/course to see detailed outlines of what is included in the course. You will also get a bonus course called Beyond the First Latch that is an additional 6 modules all about pumping, feeding your baby, going back to paid work if that's part of your plan. And we have a special coupon code for you. It's 100OFF for $100 off enrollment. Again, that's thebirthhour.com/course. Another way you can get involved with the Birth Hour community is by joining our Patreon. This is where you pledge your support of the Birth Hour at $5 a month or more, and you get perks in return, like access to all of our archived episodes. That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. We've been putting out birth stories since 2015, and those are all available in our archives via Patreon. And you also get access to our private Facebook community, which is a really great group of people who are there to support you, become friends, and just encourage you on this journey through parenthood. So find out more about that at patreon.com/birthhour. Today's birth story guest is Carly, and she has a home birth story to share with us. She also had a really positive pregnancy, so she talks about that as well. All right, let's hear from Carly. Hi, Carly. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we get to your story, can you tell listeners a little bit about you and your family?
Sure. My name is Carly. I'm originally from Vermont, but I live in Boston with my husband, Justin. And we currently have he's currently 2 months old, but I'm sure he'll be older when everyone's hearing this.
Yeah.
And I'm a special education teacher, and Justin is a software engineer.
Awesome. So pretty freshly postpartum over there. It's always fun to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just go back a little bit though and talk about finding out you were pregnant, your pregnancy, whatever you want to share there.
Sure. So my husband and I got married in the summer of 2023, and I had definitely been talking a lot about having a baby and just kind of starting a family. I was just really excited for that phase of life. But we both agreed, obviously, we wanted to wait till after the wedding and just kind of the craziness died down. And so in the new year, we were both kind of talking about getting ready. We had been married in July. And so just kind of approaching the 2024, we were like, okay, let's just stop preventing. And I had been off birth control for, I believe, over a year at that point. Just kind of an aside, in my very early 20s, I had hit this moment where I was like, oh my God, I've been on the pill for 10 years, and that's hormonal birth control, and just kind of seeing all these things coming out about it. And the more we know, I just kind of had this, I need to get off of hormonal birth control feeling. And I'd been on it when I was so young because I had really bad periods. I couldn't stand up without blood running down my leg, and I just couldn't even leave the house. It was just so bad. And eventually I did get diagnosed with a cyst. And so kind of the cascade from there was on birth control. And so when I went off of it, I was pretty nervous what would happen. And I realized I had completely normal periods as an adult. And so that was just really nice to know. And so I just kind of say that just in case anyone is in that similar experience where they're I don't know what to do. My period was so bad when I was young. mine at least changed. And I had really, really average, like typical periods. So I was happy being off of the pill for over a year at that point. And so when we decided to stop like preventing, I was kind of like, okay, great. And then that was like in January. And then 1 month in, I was like, the control freak in me like needs to like, we need to be trying. Like I need to kind of know that we're trying in the time when I'm ovulating. Otherwise I'm going to be wondering like if something's wrong. And I wanted it. And we both wanted it. So we tried that second time in February, and we were very lucky and got pregnant on the first month, which I know isn't the case for everyone, but I was very fortunate. And it's just kind of funny because I took a test one day because I was tired, and I like went and took a nap, and I literally left the test on my husband's bedside table because that's where I took my nap, on his side of the bed. And then I forgot about it for 2 days. And 2 days later I saw it and I was like, wait, that's positive. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
yeah. And I was like, wait, like Justin must have like never seen this. And then I was just kind of like, what if this is how I was trying to tell him? And it was just kind of silly that like neither of us noticed it for 2 days. And so
yeah, I've not heard that before.
yeah. So I was like, that was silly, like to forget it. And so I just took another quick test. I was like running out of the house to go to a workout class. And I took another test, and that one was also positive because I was like, I can't trust a test that's been out for 2 days. So yeah. So that was exciting. And so from then on, like pretty much that night, I looked in my email after like we agreed to do this podcast, and I inquired that night with a Homebirth midwife group, like a couple of them actually, which is just so funny that I did it that same day. I didn't think it was that quick. But yeah, I just been listening to the birth hour for years at that point. Like it's just something that I've taken an interest to. Like I was a public health major in college, and I was considering being a health teacher before I decided to be a special education teacher. And so I had just been listening to your podcast for so long that I really had this positive perception of home birth and birth centers. And my preference would have actually been a birth center, but even though I'm in Boston, a major city, there's no birth centers in my radius that would have been like a comfortable distance to get to. I think it's just like Boston's so medicalized. So I did find a couple home birth midwives and midwife groups that I inquired with. And I also reached out to my PCP to try to get like a confirmation of pregnancy appointment. And I was actually just listening to one of your podcasts today and kind of had the same experience of the woman who was saying that like the doctor was like, yeah, we'll see you around 9 weeks. And I was like, what? Like I'm like want to know that I'm pregnant and it's not going to change kind of. And that was like really like shocking to me. And I was like, well, what if my HCG isn't doubling and all these things that you've heard? So I was definitely like disappointed that it was going to take over a month to get that confirmation. And so I kept doing the tests, the strip tests, like every day to see that they were getting darker until I finally just convinced myself I was pregnant. So I also never got any morning sickness or any symptoms other than like a slight change in appetite. I was definitely like suddenly hungry, and then I would eat and get really full like very quickly. And so that to me was like a slight change that signaled that I was pregnant, but I never had nausea, which I'm very lucky for. But I also kind of was like, it's a double-edged sword because I was like, am I pregnant for so long? And so finally we did have that confirmation appointment with my OB. And that just made me feel a lot better. And kind of in tandem, I was inquiring with the midwife groups. And so there was actually like 2 midwives who got back to me and said they were no longer practicing, which I was pretty surprised about just because their stuff was online still. And then the one group who I kind of was preferencing anyways, it's a group of about 6 or 7 midwives who all work together in like a pretty large radius. They got back to me and we did a Zoom call with them and my husband. And it just like immediately clicked. They were so awesome. The woman who we spoke to, she was just like super chill and calm, and she didn't seem to be kind of pushing us one way or another. It was just kind of like, ask any questions you want. She was super honest, and I already had my heart set on kind of an out of hospital birth experience, but it really helped my husband feel confident in it. I did have him watch The Business of Being Born, like I think like the winter before we just started to the trying, and he already was like on board with whatever I wanted, but he's just such a big cheerleader for me, and he kind of trusts my judgment. And so we around 12 weeks signed on with the midwife group.
Okay. So you got everything figured out very early in pregnancy. I know that it's so hard when they tell you like basically have nothing to do until 9 weeks except sit and wait.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you made good use of that time figuring out other things.
Yes. I was already like well down the road with the midwives. And then I also ended up hiring a doula like in that time period also. And I kind of think I scared the doulas. They were like, oh, this is so early. Like, they're like, usually people don't reach out to us this early. I'm like, oh, really? Like,
yeah. I mean, in some cities you kind of have to, it seems like, but maybe not everywhere.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I assumed, just being in like a major city. But I know, again, like Boston is very medicalized. And so I think I was just like very eager.
Yeah. All right. So you found all your care providers early. How did the rest of your pregnancy go?
Yeah, it was very easy. I had a really naturally easy pregnancy. And I think that kind of like my mom was like, oh, I love being pregnant. Like she kind of made a comment as well that she just really enjoyed her pregnancy. And I kind of found it to be the same. I will say like the hardest thing for me was just like clothes not fitting. I was so shocked when I was like 8 weeks pregnant that like I could look in the mirror and see my body and be like, I look no different to me. And I'm the person who lives in this body every day. And I don't even notice a physical appearance difference, but like my jeans wouldn't fit. And so that was challenging just because like clothes are like something that I just love my kind of closet and making different outfits. And I'm a teacher and I like to have fun with it. And kind of the kids, I teach middle school and they're always like, let me rate your outfit. And it's just kind of like a part of my identity that I was like so quickly having to kind of change. And I didn't have really many options that I felt were like the same, like in my same style for clothes, which was really challenging. And I kind of like didn't expect that to be such a mental hurdle.
Yeah. And you don't want to like invest in a lot of stuff because it's short term. So you end up wearing the same thing over and over again. So I could see
exactly
that being hard for someone who's used to mixing it up every day.
Yeah. And I am lucky that like I am a teacher. And so I ended up it worked out where I was around 16 or so weeks when I went on summer vacation. And so like I didn't end up telling my school prior to that just because it was kind of before that 20-week scan and I just wasn't really ready yet. And so I was able to kind of work around it until then. And then thankfully it was like the summer. So I just kind of wore a lot of those like onesie spandex outfits and like dressed them up a little bit and it was comfortable, but definitely like you said, like I am a big kind of anti-fast fashion and I love to thrift and I just kind of have like this really honed closet of like vintage items and things that I kind of have like invested in. And I just didn't want to be buying a bunch of one-off things that like I wouldn't use. But I actually did do that Newly rental service and that was a lifesaver.
Oh, nice.
I would definitely recommend that if someone is like in that same situation where they're like, I don't want to buy a bunch of clothes. And that helped me a lot.
Very cool. All right. Well, anything else from pregnancy? You want to talk about kind of the final weeks leading up to birth?
Yeah. So I was really lucky with my midwife group. They came to my apartment for all of our visits, which just worked out so well because once I did go back to school, that's like it lined up perfectly with my 28-week time, which is when the appointments picked up to I think it was every week at that point or something. So it was hard for my husband a little bit because he wanted to come to every appointment, but he would just work from home those days. And I was just so lucky because I got out at 2:40 and then I could be home by 3 and the midwives were here at 3. And so I just like really loved that aspect of the care. And yeah, we just kind of did a lot of walks, my husband and I, and just kind of tried to stay active. I did start drinking like red raspberry leaf tea in my second trimester because the midwives gave me the okay for that. And then I increased it in my third. I think I had like 2 cups a day in my third. I also did the dates. I hate dates. That was really hard for me. I was like dreading it every time. I put them in smoothies and it was manageable. And I'm glad I did it just like in case, because I would have wondered, but I really didn't enjoy dates. So
I don't know how people do it. How many a day is it supposed to be?
I had 6. Like I put 6 in my smoothies.
Yeah, it's insane.
I was going a little crazy because I was buying the dates from Trader Joe's and I realized that like one of every like pack would have the pit in it. And so I would make my smoothie and then I'd get these chunks. And I'm like, what is this? And it was like driving me nuts. And then I realized I had to like cut them all open, even though they were supposed to be pitted. It was such a mess. I was like, oh, I hate these dates. And then I will just say like all my appointments, like everything felt like really normal. I almost felt boring to the midwives. I felt bad. I was like, are we boring? Because like they would come and I had no questions. Like I asked a lot of my questions in the first couple of appointments because I was just so eager. And then by the end, I was like, I feel like I know what's going on. And I was like, they came to me for like an hour every week. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I have nothing else to ask. But my baby did stay. I did know it was a boy. So he was staying on the right side of my stomach, like the entire like pregnancy, like the second half when I could feel him. He was just always in this one position on my right side, which the midwife said was not super normal. Like they were like, oh, babies really do like move a lot, but like yours has always been here where like the butt was kind of jutting out right under my like right ribs. And then if he did kind of push out his feet, they would come out on the left side. So I could like almost see like two like baseball sized lumps kind of coming out of me. And so I was a little nervous because one midwife did make a comment about possibly having like a sunny side up baby. Mm-hmm. And so I just knew from the podcast that that could lead to back labor. And I was just like a little nervous about that. But I did try like a couple positions to move him and he never moved. Like he just stayed there. So I'm like, they were very comforting though in saying that like babies know where they should be. And that was another thing I really loved about my midwife group is that they trusted my body and the baby the most in the experience. And so they were very much like, you know what, we're not worried about it. Like if he's there, that's for a reason. And so I just kind of took that and ran with it. But it was a little uncomfortable at the end when he would like jut out and I'd be in like the middle of a class and I'm like, okay, like, can we like not be pushing on me so hard? So it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then I did like the very end of my pregnancy, I was planning to mentally, I was like, I'm going to work past my due date because it lined up pretty much with the Thanksgiving break. So my due date was a Saturday and then there were like, it was like the Sunday and then there were 2.5 days of school before Thanksgiving. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to work past it. I'm going to work all the way up to Thanksgiving. Like he's not coming early. First time moms go late. And I'm just going to save those like days for my maternity leave. And then when I hit 39 weeks, I just had this like mental roadblock where I was like, I go to school and my job is pretty busy and demanding while I'm there for those 8 hours. And so physically I feel great, but mentally I could not give my attention to the pregnancy. And I was kind of getting to that point where I was like, if the baby were to come earlier on the due date, like I almost would feel like I didn't have enough mental preparation time. Yeah. And it was just kind of a really hard decision for me because to take off work, but I did end up taking off that last week, but it was a hard decision because I really want to be there for my students and kind of see it through. And it was hard, but I did end up doing it. And I'm glad I did because the baby was born that week. So spoiler alert.
Good intuition.
Yes. So I can go into that now.
Yeah. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. So like I said, the last week leading up to my due date, I was like really grappling about taking off work. And I did end up doing it. I just kind of called in sick those days because that's just what you can do with like a certain amount of time. And so I just kind of tied up loose ends that week. I like sent my thank you notes out from the baby shower and I ran errands and just did things around the apartment that I wanted to get done. And I'm a big Hallmark movie buff. So I was just like binging Hallmark movies on my yoga ball and just kind of doing that. And then on that Wednesday, so I was 39 weeks and I believe 4 days pregnant, I was like, I'll just do the mile circuit and see what happens. And so I was 2 positions into the mile circuit and I went to the bathroom because I had to pee and I started to lose my mucus plug. And so I was like, oh, like, I was kind of like, this is working much more effectively than even I thought it would, whether it was related or not. I just kind of was excited to see that. And then I finished up the mile circuit and that was that. And then the next morning, so that was a Thursday morning, I think 39 and 5, I woke up at like 6:30 with this really instinctual kind of feeling of like, that was a cramp. But in my mind, I was like, oh, that felt like a period cramp. And I really was like, I do not miss those at all. And I just went back to bed. And I think I woke up again like an hour and a half later around 8 with the same kind of feeling. And because I was so confident that I was not having my baby early and that I just was going to have to see through Thanksgiving, I'm like a big Christmas person. And so I told my husband, I'm like, on our due date that Saturday, the 23rd, we are getting a Christmas tree. And he was like, okay. So I was like convinced we were going to go cut down our own Christmas tree on our due date because I was like, I just need something to like distract me from the fact that we haven't had the baby. And so
it's a good idea.
Yeah, in theory. And so I sent him on that Thursday morning. He took off a half day of work and I sent him to get roof racks on our car because I was like, we had a new car. I was like, we need roof racks for the Christmas tree. And so this whole like Yeah, it was just like this whole crazy plan where I was like, okay, we need the roof racks in order to get the Christmas tree, like all these like different things. And so he did. He left and went and got the roof racks on the car, and he got back around noon. And I was like, yeah, I'm having some cramps. They're coming kind of frequently, but I don't think it's anything. And so he whipped out his contraction timer, being like the birth partner he is. And he's like, I'm just going to time them. And so he timed my contractions, and they were already like 9 minutes apart at noon. And I was like, like, I don't know, it could be prodromal labor. It's probably not anything. And he's like laughing. He's like, no, I think you're in labor. And so it was just kind of funny. And I was like, well, like just in case, we need to kind of set up the apartment because we're having a home birth. And so we had to put the sheet with the shower liner with the other sheet on the bed. And he hadn't even set up the tub, because they were like, you should have the tub set up just like in your house, ready to go where you want it. And I knew I had to wash the towels because they were like, you need to have all your towels clean, and just like small things. And so we kind of did this mad dash clean of the apartment. It was kind of like a funny, like we were both just running around like chickens with our head cut off for an hour and a half. And then I was like, okay, now we need to rest, like, because that's what they say you need to do. And so we laid down and took maybe like an hour and a half nap. And the contractions are still coming at like 7-ish minutes apart. And so then it's hitting around 4:00 in the evening, and I am definitely feeling like the intensity increase, and they're coming even quicker. I think it's like close to 5 minutes apart. And so I sent Justin to the store because I was like, we need to have bags of ice here, and we need toast and all these like random things. And so he just went to the store, like the corner store, and came back with that, and things weren't slowing down. And I was like, it's definitely going to stop. I'm like, nobody has their baby early. Like, I'm not going to have my baby early. Like, my mom had all of us late. I was just very much in denial. And Justin was like, no, this is happening. You need to text people. So I texted my doula, and I was like, I was very casual. I was like, just so you know, I lost my mucus plug. I'm having some like cramps. And she was like, okay, like, let me know if anything changes. Like, I would not use the word contractions. And he texted the midwives and kind of gave them that update. And they were very casual. They were like, okay, just let us know what's going on. And so within 2 or so hours, I was past the point of like, I don't want to talk to anyone. So Justin's like texting my family, like it escalated very quickly. He called my parents, kind of trying to arrange flights for them to get here because they live in North Carolina. He's calling his parents. It was like their contractions are coming every 2 or 3 minutes. And the contraction timer is telling Justin, like, call or go to the hospital, which obviously to us would signal call the midwives. And I'm like, this isn't even real labor. Like, I'm fully telling him, like, do not text anyone. Like, do not tell the midwives. He's like, I'm going to send them a screenshot of this. And I'm like, no. I was very much like in denial completely that this was happening. My poor husband, I literally was like,
yeah,
he was like, I'm just going to send them the picture. And I was like, no, do not do it. And then he would like secretly send it to the doula, and then I'd like see it because I'm in the group text. I'm like, no, why did you do that? And it was just like a whole mess.
Oh my gosh. I feel like people should let their partner listen to this, and
I know,
don't listen to me, send it no matter what.
I know. I like at one point, like I was eating toast and he was like calling my parents. And I just like literally I had a contraction. I spit out the piece of toast I was eating, just put it on the coffee table and walked away and like went and laid in bed. And he later found it and was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, that was my toast that I couldn't eat. And so I just was way down the river and I didn't realize it at that point. Or I didn't want to accept it, I think, because I just, in my brain, I was like, once I say it's real, it's going to stop. And I was excited. I did want it to happen. Like, I definitely was like, if the baby came early, that would be amazing. But I just didn't want to get my hopes up. And I'm also like a very like teacher's pet, kind of like I want to be the star student. And so I didn't want to like false alarm the midwives.
Yeah.
And then be that person. I was like, that would be my like biggest embarrassment if I called the midwives here. And like, so, and like, I didn't say any of this to Justin. I'm just like in my head, like, so anyways, I was just a crazy person.
The more information they have, the better, though.
Yes.
I know you know now and not in the moment, but yeah.
So he's texting them, and like I'm in and out of the shower. Like the shower helped me a lot. And he texted them at around 7:00. I was like reading back in the text. I'm laying in bed and I called Justin in because I ended up throwing up and I needed him. And so he texts them. He goes, Carly just threw up. And I was like, well, can you tell them I threw up? And then I told him, and I peed a little. Like, I'm telling him that. He texts them, Carly threw up and peed a little. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so embarrassing. Like, why did you tell them that? And I was just like getting at him. And he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, my poor husband.
Oh, man.
And then they asked about the intensity of the throw up, and he goes, I would say not super duper intense. Like, I just reading these texts back, I found them like so funny.
That's so funny.
And so that happened in my mind. I'm like, throwing up is in transition. I'm like, I know I'm not that close. Like, what's going on? And I was just kind of getting like flustered. And so we just kept laboring at home, just the two of us. But at that point, he basically stopped texting the midwives on my request. I was like, nothing's happening for a while. Like, I'm not close. We just need to get some rest. And so from essentially like 8 p.m. on, we were texting a little bit with our doula, or Justin was, and I was just like in bed, sleeping every 2 minutes between contractions. I would frantically get up out of bed and go to the shower, take a shower, kind of start the cycle over again. And then we'd go in the living room and try a couple positions. And then I'm like, okay, I just need to rest. And it was just kind of like an endless spiral of those 3 spots. And so Justin was texting our doula Taylor and just kind of telling her what's going on. And I, at that point, like it was probably hitting like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm like, why isn't she like offering to come here? Like in my mind, I didn't say this to Justin. I was just like, I'm like, I must not be really like that far along. And this all just kind of contributed to the denial of things. And then finally it hit like 4:30 in the morning. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like thinking about how just like, I never thought about transferring to the hospital. I never thought about like actually not being able to do it. But in my mind, I was like, I just need more help. And so I asked Justin to call Taylor here. And she was like, great, I'm on my way. And so I think she was really just waiting for us to ask her to come here, which is what I asked her to do when we like had our meetings prior to labor. So it's just kind of funny because I just like definitely lost sight of all of my plans when I was in labor and Laborland. I was like thinking back now, I'm like, I definitely asked her to wait until we asked her to come. Yeah. And then in the moment I was like, why isn't she coming? So
yeah, this is why we write down the birth preferences or the birth plan.
Yeah, that is definitely one of my like biggest regrets, or kind of like things I would do next time, is like Justin and I talked about so many things and I verbalized so many things to him and to our midwives and my doula, but I never like wrote it down for him. As, like, I just kind of was like, oh, it's going to work out. Like I have these kind of birth affirmations on like that I found on Spotify, and I was like, oh, I'll play those when I'm in labor. But I never sent him the birth affirmations to like play. And I just thought I'd be a lot more like cognizant when in the moment and just be like, like, oh, between contractions, like you have a couple minutes, like I'll be able to grab my phone. Like, no, my phone didn't touch it for a good 24 hours. Like it was just kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And so we asked Taylor to come at around 4:30, and she was there within the hour. But yeah, I definitely had like been kind of hitting the point of panicking. And I just remember saying like the classic, like, why does anyone do this again once they've done it once? Like, how does anyone have more than one kid? Like I remember saying those things out loud, and I'm already like, oh, I would do that again. Like 2 months later, I'm already like, it wasn't that bad, but I just remember saying it. And I'm kind of like, my mind is just so tricky that way. And I just like remember feeling like, oh my God, my mom, she told me that her first labor was like 30 something hours, my sister, and she had Pitocin and didn't get an epidural. And I was like I was saying out loud to Justin, I was like, how did my mom do this with Pitocin? I know that makes your contractions so much worse. Like I just was like feeling for her in that moment. And it just kind of all came out. Like I was just like kind of crazy, like saying all these things. And he definitely, my husband did such a good job just being like, you know what, like you're doing great. You're going to get through this. It's fine. Like, yeah, he did a really good job supporting me. And then, so our doula came, and she was really great in that moment because first of all, Justin was like, I need to kind of like take a break and just like reset. Cause he was kind of seeing that it was in the final stretch. And I think like mentally he was like needed to prepare a little bit. And he also was like, I don't know how to help her anymore. And that's exactly why we wanted her there. I didn't really necessarily, I was like, I don't know if I need a doula for me. I feel like I know a lot about pregnancy and birth, but I think like I want someone to help Justin help me better. And that's exactly what she did. So she kind of came in and was like, the positions that Justin had been telling me to try from like the birth partner book and just from our kind of courses and things that we've done, I was like, I'll try it for one contraction. And then I would freak out. I'd be like, no, it hurts too much. And he wouldn't be like, kind of wanting to push me. So when she came in, she was like, nope, you have to try it through another contraction, try it through another. And that really helped me because of course, like, you know, like the first contraction, it might not feel comfortable, but you might kind of like ease into it, and it might actually be a really good position for you to be laboring in. And so she did a really great job with that. And we kind of spent the next hour kind of going through these positions. And then Justin started setting up the birth tub. And at that point, like it was around 6 a.m, we called the midwives. And so that for me felt like, okay, like we're actually getting somewhere, even though like at that point I was surprisingly very close to having a baby, but I needed kind of them to be on their way to feel like I was even making progress. And of course, in the back of my mind, I was like, what if they get here and I'm like 4 centimeters? I don't know what I'm going to do. But I was just glad that they were on their way. And so we called the midwife when Taylor was like, I think we should call the midwives. And she heard me through a couple of contractions and she was like, yeah, I'll come. I'm coming from another birth. Like, I'll come by. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll leave. I was like, oh my God, if she leaves, like, I'm not going to be able to finish this labor here. Like, I kind of was like, am I not as far as I think I am? And I just kind of had those like seeds of doubt again, just because I was totally in denial that I was having this baby. And so Taylor was laboring with us while the midwives were on their way. And I was in the bathroom while Justin was setting up the birth tub because I kind of felt like I wanted to sit on the toilet and I was starting to get that kind of urge in your butt feeling. And just listening to all the podcasts, like everyone's like, I'm going to poop. Like in my mind, I thought like, oh, I'm going to like in my brain, I was like, oh, you think you have to poop. And I know that's like some people's experience. For me, it was like, oh, I know I don't have to poop. I know this is like the labor, but it felt like if there was poop there, it was going to come out. I literally remember saying like my butt is going to fall out. And it was just like such an intense feeling. I could not stop it from happening. It was shocking. I was like, I know people kind of say that like your body takes over. And I was hoping that would be the case, I think, from like the people who have like the fetal ejection reflex. Like, I'm like, that just sounds so nice. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I was just so surprised at how intensely like my body was doing things without me even trying. And honestly, I was trying to stop it at certain points. And like my doula had to be like, relax, like kind of like stop tightening your face, stop tightening your shoulders, like let it happen. And I was just like so surprised.
Was it just like a lot of pressure at that point, or were you feeling the urge to push?
Yeah. I wasn't feeling the urge to like push into it, but it was like pressure that I could not stop from coming. And I almost like, I wanted to be like, I'm sorry. Cause I was like I was just so terrified that I was pushing against my cervix because nobody obviously had checked me. Like the midwives aren't even there. And I'm starting to have these like feelings like my body's doing it for me. And I'm like almost trying to avoid it, but I couldn't avoid it. And it was just crazy. And so that happened a couple times and like I couldn't really lower myself to the toilet. Like I just kind of had to like stay there. I remember like going up on my tiptoes. Like it was just so intense. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I think his head is in my underwear. And I had felt something distinctly warm and round like fall into my underwear. And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, get in here. And so my husband and Taylor were like right there. And then Justin actually, he took down my underwear because I was still wearing like boy short underwear. He like pulled them down and my water had come out in a sack, but it basically, because of the pressure of the baby's head, it had resealed itself off and came out in like a complete like little orb. So like Justin was explaining it. Yeah. I think I talked about this on one of the birth hour calls.
Yes, I remember because I've had I think you're like the third story I've recorded recently where this has happened and I had never heard it before. So it was crazy.
So bizarre. I was like, thank God, I guess it's not his head because the midwives aren't here. But I was kind of like,
yeah, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. I was like, what was that then? Because I literally felt like I birthed something. And so Taylor's like looking at it and she's like, oh, it's your water. And then it like splashes on the floor like a water balloon. I was like, what? I remember saying, I didn't think it happened like that. And I had this like, I have this very clear memory of like, I've listened to so many birth hour podcasts and I've never heard this happen. I kind of was like, I didn't like, there's just things that happen that you don't even know after listening to hundreds and hundreds of birth stories. So it's just kind of funny that happened. But Justin like described it to me. I was asking him about it yesterday and he was like, yeah, it was like a waxy looking, like filmy kind of ball that was like completely closed off. Like it was separate from you. And then it looked, he's like said it was about the size of like a softball. And then it just fell on the floor like a water balloon, splashed. And that was crazy. And so
wild.
Yes. And so I guess that did count as my water breaking because, well, at least with Taylor was like, tell the midwives your water broke. And so Justin texted them that. And the midwives were like 15 minutes away. So I think they came, that was around 7:15 in the morning. And then they got there by 7:30. And the water was clear, which was great because I was definitely like a little like, oh gosh, what if there's meconium after all this time? but that was really positive. And so the midwives showed up around 7:30. The first midwife came around 7:30. And so the way that my midwife group works is 2 midwives will attend your birth, and you always have a student midwife assigned to you, which actually was so nice because even though the student midwife isn't a midwife yet, they're kind of your continuity of care person. So like that student who was assigned to me is the person who I saw through most of my appointments. She came to almost all of them. If I reached out, she was the one kind of responding to me, unless it like needed to be like an official midwife. But it just kind of ended up being like comforting to have someone that I like knew more closely, because I got to know all of the midwives throughout our care time, but some of them I only saw like twice, and some of them I saw 4 times, and some of them I saw like 6 times. And so we did luck out and ended up having midwives that I saw a lot in the end of our pregnancy. And so like I did feel really comfortable. I felt comfortable with everyone, but I felt really comfortable with the ones we had. But the student aspect was just, I think that's just like something really smart that they do to give you like that continuity. And so our first midwife arrived around 7:30, and she kind of confirmed that the tub was too hot and I could not get in it, which I was very disappointed about. And so Justin and like the doula started frantically like filling pots of water from the sink with like cold water to cool it down, while she was kind of helping me like breathe through contractions and just kind of listening and watching me. Like she really stood off to the back and just let me labor. And it was really beautiful because at that point, like the sun was rising and like it was coming in through my blinds, and it just felt like very suddenly peaceful, even though we kind of had this like very whirlwind crazy night. Like I felt very comforted once she was there, and like just kind of to have it be the morning. And even though we were exhausted, I think like it just felt right that everything was kind of coming together in that like really early morning time. And so they did get the tub down to the right temperature, and I got in the tub and I was kind of on all fours or on my knees and leaning over the tub and just kind of vocalizing through the contractions. I still had that pressure kind of coming, but I didn't really feel the urge to push into it. And the midwife at that point was kind of encouraging me, like, if you want to push, you can. And I was kind of like in the back of my mind, like, how does she know I'm complete? Like, what if I still have like my cervix there? And so she was using the Doppler on me while I was going through contractions, and she noticed that the baby's heart rate was kind of decelerating or like declining a little bit during the contractions. And so after a couple of contractions with that happening, she did ask me to get out of the tub to be checked, because she's like, it's either you do have a little bit of cervix left or the baby just doesn't really like that position. And so I went from the tub to my bed, which is pretty close, to be checked. And in my mind, like leading up to this birth, anytime I envisioned having to be checked, like I was like, first of all, I'm going to decline checks, which I was kind of like, that didn't even matter because the midwives got there so like late into my labor. But in my mind, I was like, oh, when you get checked, it's just like a pap smear. You're just laying there and it's calm. And I just kind of forgot that you still have contractions through that. And so that was just like really crazy to me, that like laying on the bed getting checked and I'm having like a full-blown contraction. I was just kind of like, okay, are you done? Can I get back in the tub? Like I was kind of like asking, I'm like, are we done? Are we done? And I just kind of didn't see it going that way. It was just kind of silly. And so she checked me and I was complete. And so she's like, okay, I would prefer if you would just try on your, like, not on your back, but kind of almost like leaning like a hot tub in the birth tub, or like putting your hands behind you. And so I ended up laboring with my hands behind me. And she checked me again through like maybe 2 or 3 more contractions with the Doppler, and the baby was fine. So like she was completely right. Her instinct was right that the position just wasn't optimal for him for whatever reason. And so she was like, great, he's doing great. Why don't you try pushing through some of the contractions? And so from that moment on, I think I had maybe 3 or 4 contractions, and I was like pushing, and I definitely was like vocalizing very loudly. And we live in a 2-family, and I was like, wow, we're going to have to text our neighbors after this just to let them know like everything's okay. Because I was definitely like yelling.
Did they know you were having a home birth?
They did. Luckily, like I caught them in the hallway one time, and they knew we were pregnant. They had just had a baby like 4 months before. And I was like, just so you know. And they're really cool. So it worked out well. But I just like had this mental, like I was like, we're going to have to text them later. And it's just so funny how like lucid I was in that moment. It is funny because I feel like I was in labor land, but I also wasn't. Like the midwives were like asking Justin for things at some points during like the labor. And I was like, he didn't know where they were. And I was like, they're over there. And like, I just was so aware of like what was going on around me, which I didn't expect.
But that's also like very me. I'm kind of like a control freak in that way. So anyways, like I started pushing and the baby was coming pretty quickly. I think I only pushed for maybe like really pushed for 10 or 15 minutes, which was really great. But he did kind of back to how he was on my right side the whole time. I didn't end up having like a sunny side up baby, but he came out with an asynclitic presentation is what they said. So his head was basically tilted. And so when his head was coming out, they could see it was tilted and it was fine. It was just kind of, that was how he was being born. And then once his head was born, but the rest of his body hadn't been born yet, he then turned. So I felt like Justin, his arms were in the tub getting ready to catch the baby. And I felt this like crazy feeling like down in that area. And I like literally yelled at Justin. I was like, "Are you touching me? Don't touch me." And he was like, "I'm not touching you." And the midwife was like, "No, the baby just turned." She's like, "That's really like she's like, I don't really see babies turn that late, like in the kind of delivery process, but he just fully rotated himself." So the way that they are like, they kind of naturally would do that coming down the birth canal, like he did it when he was half outside of me. So that was like a very discomforting feeling. Like I
was going to say that's pretty cool that he did that, but it doesn't sound like it'd be very comfortable.
Oh yeah. The midwives were like, "That was really cool to watch. But definitely you can see." I was like, "Great." I was like, it felt horrible.
You're like, glad you're having fun.
Yeah. I was like, "What?" And so then, just a couple more pushes and he was out. And I really like kind of how people have mixed opinions. I definitely felt like pushing was relieving and I did not find it nearly as bad as those last like few hours of labor. I think the last few hours of labor really got to me and I kind of was hitting that panic point and I just lost a lot of my coping mechanisms, which next time I think like I would be really more rigid about keeping them kind of front of mind and just like having them physically around me. But pushing was very comforting and everything like went well in that aspect. And my husband is a redhead. And so when he was born, when the baby was born, I was like, they put him on me and he had this really dark hair. And I just have this memory of thinking like, this is our baby. Like, this is what he looks like. Like I kind of just expected the baby to have red hair, lighter hair, no hair. And he just had this like dark hair. And I was kind of like, this is who I've had in me all this time. And it's kind of this crazy moment where I was just like meeting him for the first time and kind of making that connection. And it was just really, really crazy and awe-striking.
All right. Well, yeah, sounds like it was pretty fast and furious there at the end. How was immediately postpartum? And then we can talk about longer term.
Yeah. So he did cry right away, which I was like something I was a little nervous about. And I just kind of like know like I guess like the midwives would always say like, "Oh, boys can kind of take a little longer." And I was just kind of like keeping that in the back of my mind, like just in case he didn't cry right away, but he was very alert. His eyes were open. He was like looking at me. It was very sweet. He grabbed my thumb. And I just remember like, that's crazy. Like he's so like here already. But his cord was really short. So I couldn't really bring him up to me. And so like we had to obviously get out of the tub kind of quickly because babies will get cold. And obviously they have to do the placenta. It was just like a lot of whirlwind things. So it was just so funny. Like they were trying to maneuver, like hold him, but like they had to keep him so low to me while I stood up. And it was just like an awkward little like shuffle. It took like 3 people to like one holding the baby and two helping me. And like, it was just kind of a funny little shuffle to the bed. And I just remember thinking like there wasn't blood in the water of the birth tub, but while I was walking from the birth tub to the bed, I just remember seeing a lot of blood like coming out of me. And I was kind of like shocked because I just kind of assumed like if I was bleeding, the water would have turned red. And I think it just kind of held it up. And so I laid on the bed and like they kind of started the process of waiting for the placenta and kind of the fundal massage and having the baby on me. But basically within like half an hour, it was clear like the placenta wasn't coming as quickly as they would want it to. And I know from like your story, Bryn, and like other stories that a manual extraction is like very, very painful and uncomfortable.
Yeah. And
the alternative would obviously be a hospital transfer, like if the placenta didn't come. And so I was kind of thinking between those two things, I don't want either of them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I had it my way, it'd just come out. And so I'm laying there and they're kind of like asking me like, do you feel kind of contracted? Like, do you feel crampy the way you did before? And I was like, no, like I really didn't. I was I felt like shaky almost and just kind of like looking at the baby and I had him on me, and like Justin was next to me, but I was like not really feeling any urge to push or anything like that to get that placenta out. And I didn't really feel any contractions. And so
they were kind of like talking amongst themselves. They really never made me feel worried, but I just kind of knew from like the birth hour that this is the clock that I'm on. And so I was like, do whatever you got to do, like cut the cord, give the baby to Justin. Like I will do anything to not have to leave this apartment right now. And they were very, very like really comforting in that moment. They were like, no, we want to keep him with you. Like, it's great for your hormones. Like, it'll help us in the long run. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we see this, like, it's probably like just kind of take a little bit longer. And they gave me some herbs and they tried some other things, but the placenta wasn't coming. And so it kind of hit this 45-minute, nearing an hour mark. And the doula, I think, like, I just am really grateful because she said, like, she just kind of made this comment like, oh, like, well, she hadn't peed since I got here. And I was definitely like, I couldn't really lower myself to the toilet at that point of labor. Like, I was just really like, it was just so intense. And something also from labor that I just kind of didn't expect was like, I could barely drink water. Like, if someone offered me water, I'd take like the smallest sip and then I'd turn it away. It just didn't appeal to me at all. And so I definitely like had been drinking some fluids, but not nearly enough. And then on top of it, like, I didn't go to the bathroom in the last like several hours of labor. And so she told the midwives that, and they were like, oh, that's really good to know because it probably is your bladder that's holding up the placenta. And so then they asked me if I wouldn't mind being cathetered. And so I had a catheter in, which I thought was going to be super uncomfortable. And it really, really wasn't that bad in my experience. Like, it was just like a small, like, not even stinging, like it was just kind of like a little discomforting. And then after the urine was removed from me, like the placenta came right out. And so that was such a relief. Like, I know my husband was kind of like waiting for that to happen, like tell anyone that we had the baby yet. Like, it was just kind of like, we were all like, at least Justin and I were waiting, kind of wondering if we were going to have to leave or what was going to happen. And so that just like kind of was a big sigh of relief. And after that, everything kind of just like felt really chill and calm. And I just kind of could like enjoy the moment a lot more and enjoy like my baby on me. It just like felt like everything was finally over.
Good. Yeah. All right. Well, what about how has postpartum been going for you guys?
Yeah. So I would say immediate postpartum was more challenging than I think like I expected energy wise. Like, I think I just kind of was like, oh, a home birth, like you don't have all those fluids. Like, you just kind of hear how people can feel so good. And I do think I lost like a decent amount of blood when they were waiting for the placenta to come out. Like, I just remember kind of feeling these like gushes and I just was like laying down. It was just like a lot going on. And I felt like a ghost for the first week. Like, I would look at myself and I just like felt like my skin color was off. Like, I looked hollow. Like I just was like not me for the first week after he was born. And I could definitely like be present and enjoy those moments. And like my family came and they were here and it was really helpful and everything like was still like enjoyable in the newborn phase. But I just would look at myself and be like, who is this person? And so that was just kind of shocking to me, like just like how solo I felt. Like, I like wanted pictures with him because I'm taking pictures of my husband with him and my mom with him. But then I'd look at the pictures and I'd be like, oh my God, like I look dead. And so I think like that was just really shocking to me just because I really wanted to like soak in every second. And I just felt like I had no energy. Like, I loved being with the baby and I loved like looking at him. We ended up naming him Jameson. So I loved looking at Jameson and just like holding him and every moment with him, but I just felt like exhausted, which I just didn't expect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to even like understand how we make it through those first few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was just like additionally hard the first week because like they're so sleepy or like the newborns are so sleepy that you have to wake them up every few hours to feed. And there's that kind of timeline that you're on with the gaining back to their birth weight within the first 2 weeks. And it was just like the midwives were here like every other day. It was so great. They came so often. I saw them all the time right after the labor. Like, I feel like they were definitely here at least 3 times that first week. Like, they came the 24-hour mark, they came like the 3rd day, and then they came again, like maybe the 6th day. And that was really supportive, but I just like was like exhausted. And so sleep was really hard because I wanted to just keep sleeping. Like, and when they were like, you have to wake him up every 2 or 3 hours, I was like, okay, great. Naturally, like, I'm his mom. I want to feed him. I want him to get back up to his birth weight. Like, instinctually, like you'd think that kind of would be like my like mother instinct. But when the time came and like the alarm went off, I'd be like, oh my God, I just need 30 more minutes. And I felt really like guilty about that. I think like I felt like I was like, where are those instincts kicking in? And I just kind of felt bad. but like talking about it, everyone, like with my midwives and just kind of my mom and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, like don't feel badly about that. Like, it's just kind of like, you're tired, you've been through this huge thing. And that definitely made me feel a little bit better. But I felt like for a while, I was like, oh my God, like, am I a bad mom? Like, cause I just don't want to wake up. Like, it was just exhausting.
Yeah.
But it honestly helped so much once he woke up a lot and obviously started crying for food. I'm like, perfect. This is so much better. Like, I'm like crying all the, like, I don't care. Like, wake me up every hour. I don't care. It just felt a lot more natural. And then I would just say, like, breastfeeding wise, I struggled. Like, he didn't latch the first day or two, and I was like hand expressing colostrum into his mouth, and it was like a whole mess. And we had a lactation consultant come, and she was like, oh my God, he got like a ton of food in your feed. Like, don't worry. But like, it was almost like he performed for her. Like, she was here and he did great. And then she left and I was like, wait, what's happening? The midwives actually recommended seeing a baby chiropractor because of his kind of asynclitic presentation. And because he stayed on that one side for so long, they were like, he's honestly probably just really stiff. Like he wouldn't turn his head to one side. Like, I definitely noticed it visibly. And I do think that affected his latch for the first few days, but it's just so funny how like similar to labor and like the feelings of labor where you're kind of like, I don't ever want to do that again. And then you forget about it. It like same with breastfeeding for me, at least. Like the first week was so hard. And I remember like the fourth day, like I cried, like my mom came over and I was like sobbing and I was like, it's just so hard. Like we had such a bad night last night. And then suddenly he just took to it and I haven't looked back since. Like he's so hungry, eats all the time. Like it's just been like really natural ever since then. And it just kind of took a minute to click. But I was definitely more fearful of the breastfeeding journey than birth, because breastfeeding obviously is a longer kind of day by day, everything can change. Like the baby's growing so quickly, things change so rapidly. And I just kind of had this like daunting feeling about it. And so far it's been a lot more positive than I expected it to be.
That's good. Yeah. If you can get through those first few weeks, it usually gets a lot easier. Mm-hmm. But there is a very devastating learning curve for most of us.
Oh yeah. I was like, this isn't going to work out. Like I just remember like, and it was like, I actually had done the birth hour call. Like that must have been like the fourth day. Like,
was it a Know Your Options call or?
I think it was just a birth hour call.
The Patreon group.
Yeah, the Patreon group. I did do the Know Your Options birth course and I loved it so much, which I forgot to mention, but I will at the end.
Oh, good. I love when people are in both groups. I'm like, wait, where did they tell their birth story? Like,
I know.
Yeah.
But I did a birth hour call and I kind of told his little birth story. And then that night, like everything had been going okay. Like I was like the hand expression colostrum. Yeah. And then that night was like the worst night ever.
Oh,
and I was, oh my God, did I jinx it? Like,
yeah.
He was just sobbing. And then the next day was our first pediatrician appointment. And I told her we had a bad night. And then she kind of made me feel like that, not bad, but like intentionally, but she was just like, well, he has to be eating, he has to gain back his weight. And I was just like, oh my God. And it was just like, it was a really hard first week. And then like now looking back, I'm like, I barely remember those feelings. Like now it's just so natural. So it does get better.
Yeah. And it'll be easier. I mean, there will be different challenges with the next baby, but you'll have that perspective of like, there is like light at the end of the tunnel. So.
Oh yeah. And knowing that now, I'm like, I feel like I can get through anything. Cause I really like watching the Know Your Options course. Like I was like, the breastfeeding module scared me the most because I was just like, is so not like scared me in a negative way, but it just made me realize like how much work it is and like how much you really have to kind of put into that relationship to get something out of it kind of. And it's just, women are amazing. And I just like, I'm in awe of anyone who kind of breastfeeds for any period of time. It's just it's so hard. It's so much harder than I ever thought it would be. And I thought it was going to be hard, but it just like the resources you provided were so helpful, but it was just like watching it. I knew like in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is going to be worse than childbirth. I'm like, this is going to be like for me.
It lasts longer for sure.
Yes. And I'm just like a perfectionist and I want to do well at things. And I'm like, this is just something I can't control. And I kind of knew that in the back of my mind. And but it's definitely a learning work in progress, I'll say.
Well, I'm glad that it was helpful. We're definitely trying to like get rid of this narrative of, oh, it's natural. Like just put the baby to the breast. Cause there's just a lot more to it.
Oh my God. And that's like it is hard. You hear everyone's experience. Like my mom was like, you're going to breastfeed, right? Like I loved my relationship with you all breastfeeding. And I was like, I'm going to try, but I'm not going to like put this kind of weight on myself if it doesn't work out, because I just knew from like all of your stories and this podcast that so many factors come into play. And I didn't want to be that person that was killing myself to do it. And so I was really trying to hold myself to that, but it's just so hard. It's such an emotional relationship.
Yes, it is. And one that your partner can help, but they can't fully understand the mental load of it. So
yeah, I have this distinct memory watching the breastfeeding module. And I was like, I'm so nervous about this. And Justin's like, I'll help you. And I was like, how are you going to help me? And I'm like sitting on my yoga ball being like, what do you think you're going to do?
With your useless nipples.
Yes. I like remember like snapping at him, like, how are you going to help? And he's like, oh.
Well, yeah. And we do talk about the ways that your partner can help. But yeah, ultimately there's a lot more on you for sure.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I'm so grateful to have had the midwives again for that experience. Like I will do every baby with them as long as it's possible, just because of like how much I enjoyed them. But that alone was so valuable, getting basically breastfeeding support. They're not coming in saying they're lactation consultants, and they did refer me to get a lactation consultant. So they weren't kind of saying they were the end all be all, but those first few days, seeing them 3 times in that first week, they were even able to kind of see my progression and give me that kind of confidence where they're like, listen, the second day he was here, like you were having these issues. Now you're barely having that issue and you're just like having this issue. They were like so reassuring, and they were like, we're so proud of you. It felt very nurturing. And I don't know that I would have felt the same with like a physician.
Yeah. The postpartum care with midwifery is really so huge, and like not having to go out of the house, and even just having someone to talk to and like share the thoughts and feelings swirling around in your head is amazing. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely felt so comfortable with them. I remember saying, I feel like I smell bad after birth. I was like, I just feel like one of them was like, your hormones can change. Like maybe try a different deodorant. They were just so nice and normal people who their mothers or they've seen so many births. It's just like, it was so comforting. Like I was like, I don't know that I would say that to my doctor, like come in and be like, and I feel like I smell bad, because it's not like a real medical issue. It's just something I'm experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like too, from my midwife friends, I know that they have an actual attachment to your baby. And with a doctor, a lot of times the doctor that was actually in the room when your baby was born might not be the same one you're seeing postpartum. And they're like so excited to see that baby again, because they were, the first ones to catch them and everything. So they're like, send us pictures in our group chat. Like I had my 6-week appointment with them, and they're like, you don't have to close our group chat. Like, just keep sending pictures. I was like, oh my God, that's like what I wanted to hear. Like I was sad. Yeah. You're like, I really want to be your best friend, but I don't want to annoy you.
Exactly how I feel.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. All right. Well, amazing. Any resources you want to share here at the end?
Yeah, I think I did send a couple. I will say I definitely was thinking back, and I would definitely say like clothing rental for kind of those maternity clothes was just like a lifesaver, and just kind of sustainability wise, it just felt better for me. Looking up baby and kid consignment stores in your area, like I got so many things secondhand that I really didn't want to purchase, and just kind of adding to all the collection of things in the world. But I just was able to find so many things secondhand, and I was really glad about that. My husband loved the birth partner book, and like that is like the one that we would come back to all the time. And then of course, like the birth hour and the Know Your Options class, like I had Justin listening to the birth hour with me, like in the car, and he loved the class. Like it just being on our own time, and we could do it together at night. It was just really nice. And then I found my doula through doulamatch.net, I think. And then I would just say like positive birth affirmations, like hearing those things out loud, like your baby was made for you, like your body was made for this, like your body and your baby are in tune, and just kind of like making the mental connection to those thoughts that I about in the back of your mind, but just might not be like surfacing toward the end of pregnancy. That was just really helpful for me.
Awesome. And then remind someone to play them for you during your birth, right?
Yeah, that was where I faltered. I was like, I'm going to write these on sticky notes and put them around the house. And I just was like, where was that me? I think I just thought I had a lot more time.
It's a lot to remember in the moment.
I was like fully convinced he was coming late. I was like, he's not coming. And even though he did only come one day early, so he came at 39 and 6, but in my mind, I was like, there's no way. So just kind of funny how that worked out.
Better to assume late than early in general. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Awesome. And then where can people reach out to connect with you?
Yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's Carly Kennedy. I'm private because all my students will try to follow me, but you are welcome to request me. And I'm sure if I see like the mutual with Birth Hour, I'll let you. And then I'm on the Birth Hour, the Patreon Facebook page, and the Know Your Options Facebook page. So feel free to kind of search me up on there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Carly.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
All right, now I'm going to chat with Jackie from Motif Medical all about their new wearable pump. Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining me to chat about the Motif breast pump line.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited. We have some exciting things coming.
Awesome. Well, before we get into all of that, will you tell listeners just a little bit about you and what you do at Motif Medical?
Yes, so I am a registered nurse and board certified lactation consultant, and I have the pleasure of being the clinical lactation advisor or clinical lactation specialist with Motif, which just means I get to play around with all the fun breast pumps and tell them all the things that might make the pumps and the products better for breastfeeding families, and I absolutely love it. I also work in private practice, so I still and very much, boots on the ground, helping families in their own homes right after birth or anytime in the postpartum period and the prenatal period, just helping families be more prepared for a breastfeeding journey and all the things that they might encounter.
Very cool. Well, I was lucky enough to get to use the Luna breast pump when it was pretty new. I guess 6 years ago now. My youngest just turned 6. And I talk about all the time how it was my favorite pump of all the ones I had tried, over 3 kids and everything. And then you guys came out with the hands-free pump a couple years ago. And now there's something new on the horizon. So I want to talk about the new pump that's coming out this year.
Yes, we are very excited. Just after the first of the year, we are launching the Aura Glow, which is a new wearable pump. You might remember the Aura as our original wearable pump, and it's still available, but we've got a new player on deck that I think is going to provide a lot of really sought after features, a lot of great pump quality, and something that moms I think are going to be really excited to use on a pretty regular basis as they're going back to work or just going about their lives where they need to be hands-free, need to have that wearable pump option.
Very cool. So I know you guys kind of take a lot of, I don't know, advice isn't the right word, but you take feedback. There we go. You take feedback from customers and what people are liking about pumps and things like that. So what are some of the differences with the Aura Glow that we can expect to see?
Yes, I love this question because this is why I love working with Motif, that they are so particular about taking feedback from the professional community, from the families who are using their products, and they're not just looking to pump out products that, sell. Obviously, it's a business. We need to sell things to stay in business, but the idea is to make products that actually meet needs and make pumping easier for people so that they naturally just want to buy the products, which I love that idea. And I love that we've built the Aura Glow based on feedback. So the thing I'm most excited about is the expanded flange sizing. So you get 5 flange sizes right in the box. So you get the 24 millimeter breast shield, but we also include 15 millimeter, 17 millimeter, 19 millimeter, and 21 millimeter inserts so that right out of the box, most people are going to be able to find something that allows them to pump efficiently, effectively, and comfortably. And then if those sizes don't work, the 15 through 24 that come in the box don't work, we also have even smaller sizes, 11, 12, 13, and 14 millimeter inserts available, and then a 27 millimeter breast shield available for those that might need a larger size. So excited about that. The other things that I think set this pump apart, it's a powerful wearable. So the suction is 260 to 280 mmHg. So that's millimeters of mercury. That's how we measure that suction pressure. And that puts it on par with the suction of pumps like Luna. It's still a wearable, still something that we're going to classify as a secondary pump that we would use to complement the Luna, but it's powerful. And it has 2 pre-programmed pumping modes, which are just, I think, something that's going to make life so much easier and take a lot of the guesswork out of, what settings do I use? How do I set my pump to get the most out of it?
Yeah, the different sizing is huge. I know I tried a wearable pump with my last baby. And it was, it was very early on in the making of these, but that did not work for me and was not comfortable. So having those different sizes is amazing. And do you guys provide some kind of guidance in, the packaging, or can people reach out to help find the right size?
We do provide guidance in the packaging. That's all been updated to match the most current information we have about flange sizing. So, as I said, Motif is huge on listening to that feedback, and lactation consultants have been screaming about flange sizing for a while now, and Motif definitely has listened by including those smaller sizes and that flange sizing guidance that does fit the most current information that we have about getting the right size.
Amazing. So you also mentioned the programming modes for pumping. Can you explain a little bit about those and what's different with the Aura Glow?
Yes. So I think this is revolutionary. I love this idea. There are 2 pre-programmed pumping sessions. There is the cluster feeding mode and the general pumping mode. And you can still use the pump, just as you normally would use a breast pump. But the cluster feeding mode has these 5 levels of pumping and then pause, pumping and pause to mimic how a baby cluster feeds. So that can help increase milk supply. And without the need to do this like big, long power pumping, hour-long power pumping session. It's this 30-minute pre-programmed session that your pump will move through all by itself. And then the general pumping mode is just a way to maximize your pumping efforts a little bit by triggering a couple of letdowns. So it goes through massage mode and it stays there for 2 minutes to help trigger that letdown. Then it goes to expression mode and you get that, longer, more rhythmic kind of mimicking how the baby suckles once your milk has let down. And then it will go back to the massage mode automatically to trigger that second letdown and then go back to expression. So it repeats the massage, expression, without you even having to think about it. And that way you can get a little bit more out of the time you're spending pumping.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't think I've heard of that before on a pump. And I'm just like sitting here, like picturing a nursing session with baby and like they kind of fall asleep and then they're like, oh, wait, I want some more. And they wake up and then you have another letdown. And I could see that being something that you would really benefit from as far as milk supply with a pump that could do that as well.
Yes, exactly. Just trying to take advantage of all those hormone fluctuations and all the ways that our babies know exactly how to influence our milk supply. We're just trying to mimic that with the pump setting.
Awesome. Okay. So then you mentioned that, you do classify it as a secondary pump. What kind of guidance would you give people that are trying to decide, what pump is right for them, based on whether they're pumping full time or using it occasionally or, lifestyle, things like that? Do you, especially in your work in private practice, I'm sure you see a lot of people wondering what they should get.
Oh, yes. I get this question a lot. And the truth is, when we do anything other than traditional flanges and that high quality double electric pump, like the Motif Luna, anything that doesn't have those traditional flanges and that powerful motor is really considered a secondary pump. Now, does that mean it's not going to work or it's not going to be effective? It's not going to have its place? Of course not. We know lots of people are using wearable and portable pumps, and many of them are very successful at building and maintaining milk supply. But for most people, we want to rely on something that's a primary pump like the Luna to build and maintain a milk supply, and then use something like a wearable or portable pump, so a wearable like the Aura Glow, as that secondary option that we're using when we just can't drag out the big pump and the traditional flanges. So I have 4 kids. I could very easily see myself needing a wearable pump to be able to keep up with my other children if I were to have another baby, and that would be a perfect scenario to use this pump at those times when you just need to be hands-free. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're at work, lots of different scenarios. And what I tell people is, if you're in a situation where you can't pull out that primary pump, then this would be a perfect option. A wearable like the Aura Glow would be a perfect option to complement for those times when you can't pull out your primary pump. And I do have lots of patients who kind of incorporate them from the beginning when they first introduce pumping. We tend to get a better result than if we only use one type of pump and then try to add another pump later. Sometimes it's about getting your body to be sort of conditioned to respond. So maybe adding in that wearable, if you know you're going to need it, adding it in when you first start introducing pumping into your journey.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I could see it being something that, keeps people nursing their baby just because they may not have pumped otherwise. Like you were saying, you get into a situation where you can't pull out that pump. So you just push off that pumping session, which I know I did with my second baby at work. And then my milk supply suffered. But maybe if I had had something like this, I would have been like, oh, let me just do this real quick while I finish this work or whatever. And I always tell people, block it on your calendar. Like, don't make exceptions. Don't miss a pumping session. But of course, things come up and it can be hard sometimes. So I love that there's just more options out there.
Yes, some milk removal is always better than no milk removal. So it's like, if we can only pump with a wearable, then by golly, let's get that wearable out. That's exactly what we need to do in that scenario. So yeah I love that encouragement that it might make things actually make that breastfeeding journey go a little bit further with the help of the tools that we have now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I love, I've loved everything that Motif has come out with. So I'm so excited for this new launch and to hear everyone's feedback from it. And I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me today about the new Aura Glow.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you so much again to Carly for sharing her story. If you want to find her show notes page, you can go to thebirthhour.com and just search for her name in the search bar. And we will have links to Motif Medical and the Childbirth Course and Patreon all in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.